Hello and welcome back to The Rebel's Edge, where a notable Bitcoin aficionado, he calls himself a maximalist, makes a call for Bitcoin not for 1 million, not for 2 million. You won't believe what Michael Saylor said about Bitcoin in Nashville. Bang! On The Rebel's Edge. Boom! We got to have Jared put in some of those Batman things, Pete, like bang, zoom, and all the rest of it. Like when
I like that. I like
flash
that.
on the screen, bang, zap.
It's awesome.
Welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. I'm John Najarian. He is Pete Najarian. We're going to dive right into Macro Minute. And today, Pete, I'm going to say Macro Minute is Bank of Japan, Bank of England, and the fact that we've got the July jobs report, which will come out at 8:30 Eastern time on Friday. That's one more chance for us. Obviously, the Fed meeting is in there too, but this comes out after the Fed meeting. So this, unless they really got them an early look, it won't be part of something that drives the Fed this week.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's very macro. The macro that I'm going to go to is a little less macro, but it's nonetheless, I think, very big, which is this is a monster week for earnings. When we look at technology, look at semiconductors, we've got Meta, we've got Apple, we've got Microsoft, we've got Amazon, we've got AMD. This is a monster week, and I think everybody's going to be paying attention. If they're not, they should be, because this will be a monster week in terms of where does the market go from here. We've gotten financials, we've gotten a lot of other things, but this is a very monstrous week and the names that I just read off. And I think that's going to be very market moving for sure.
Well, anytime you've got, any, and most of those Pete named folks, in fact, all of them are the big seven. Some people call it the Magnificent Seven. We know there's a lot more stocks that do move the market, but these have an outsized influence because most of them are $1 trillion plus companies. Mm-hmm. All right. Fantastic futures. I'm going to go with sugar, Pete. It's in almost everything that goes onto our plates, folks. Not everything, but almost everything. And if the price of sugar is going up like it is today, 3%, that's a fantastic future for whoever's long sugar. Not so good for anybody who needs to buy sugar.
John, forever, when I've been on television, one of the things people are note for me has been volatility. And I talk about the VIX all the time. I think it's important just to know where it is. It doesn't necessarily always direct you, but it gives you some opportunity to kind of break down where we are in the market. We sat in the 12s for the month of May, June, and part of July. Then we broke out, and we've been breaking out ever since. And now we're in a category of, call it 15 to 19 for the VIX. Well, today we sit right smack dab in the middle at 17. I think it's something very, very important to keep an eye on. Doesn't mean you've got to stare at it day in and day out, but I think it is something that you need to know because it's giving us an idea of exactly the kind of movements like we saw on Friday, 600-point move in the Dow. You look at the S&P absolutely rip into the upside, the NASDAQ, and all the rest of it. But I think that you want to know where that VIX is because, as we've said many, many times, when it's low, buy it when you can, not when you have to. And when it gets a little bit higher, well, you might be looking for an opportunity out there as well. So keep an eye on that VIX. It's an important metric, I think, when you're looking at these markets.
Indeed it is, Pete. It's like a temperature. If you want to know if the kid's sick or if the kid's feeling good and faking it.
Yeah.
All right. Pete, what about Abbott Labs? As the name implies, they are a company that makes a variety of things. One of them is Similac, which is a baby formula. We've talked about it for years because it's really a duopoly. I think it might be Pete Nestle or something like that, and Abbott that really control 90% of the market in baby formula. Well, apparently their premature infant formula has had some adverse effects, and the declaration by the judge on these thousands of lawsuits against Abbott is that, you know what, you knew about it and you covered it up, so I'm going to hit you with $500 million fine. Would you touch this one, Pete?
it's such a massive hit, John, that the reason I wouldn't touch it isn't necessarily the 500, like you said, nearly a half a billion, 500 million. But the problem is this is still going to linger for a while. This isn't over. And it's going to, like I say, it's going to linger. There's liabilities, there's legal issues still. So I think from that perspective, when you look at where the stock is, it's actually kind of impressive. It's somewhere in between its 52-week lows and highs, call it 89 to 121. It's sitting right at about 100. But I think this is one of those where, unless there's something that really draws you in, you're probably best to just kind of keep an eye on things and wait to see if there's anything further going to happen here from the legal side. And anytime you have to worry about that, I think that there's enough other stocks out there that I think that you don't need to put too much attention to this one, at least right now. I think maybe in the future, sure. But right now, I think my hands would be off.
Well, I would be right there with you. I would be a patient buyer. It's not a no touch, but it's unless you have to, I'd be patient. All right, let's talk about somebody who is also very patient. That would be Michael Saylor. At the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, he put out a prediction, Pete, for Bitcoin in 2045. Now, a lot of you will have a hard time telling me what you might be doing tomorrow or later in the week. But Michael Saylor apparently has vision that goes out to 2045, not just the laser eyes, Pete, but vision. And here's his prediction. Take a listen.
Here's my macro Bitcoin forecast. It's 21 years. Goes out to the year 2045. What do I think will happen? Well, I've got a bear case and a bull case, but what I think will happen is that 55% ARR goes to 50%, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. It's between 50 and 20. It'll gradually decelerate till it's growing about twice as fast as the S&P index.
How do you go to 2045?
And at that rate, Bitcoin's $13 million a coin in the year 2045. 13 million. It could be a 3 million bear case. It could be a 49 million bull case. But what is Bitcoin?
49 million
of the world's assets then.
Yep.
That's some real numbers, John.
Yep. Somewhere between 3 million by 2045 and 49 million. And I'll say this for him, Pete. He does put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
I mean, MicroStrategy, that is, I know most of you know this, but that is the chairman of MicroStrategy. He has made billions, plural, for shareholders and himself by being a Bitcoin maximalist. That is what he buys. If you're looking for the guys buying Ethereum or Solana or any of the altcoins, nope. Michael Saylor has been buying Bitcoin, and he occasionally takes a little off the table, Pete, just so that they can pay taxes and things like that. But other than that, he holds, and then he buys more on dips. Now, we were up through 70,000 briefly today, Pete. We've traded down over $2,000 from the high. President Trump was there touting Bitcoin. We had unusual activity, Pete, because, you know, hey, if you know that the President Trump and Elon Musk are going to be speaking about Bitcoin and other things at the Nashville conference, why wouldn't you? As you see there, we had several bits of unusual activity. And if you bought those and took some profits today, you had a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. Coinbase always seems to kind of somewhat have that mirror with that whole world of Bitcoin and so forth. And MSTR absolutely has been amazing. And to Michael Saylor, I mean, you know what? I don't think any of us should ever question him. I'm not questioning him. I just am amazed by those numbers. But he's been right. He's been absolutely right. But that is a big spread. 3 million on the bearish side and 49 million on the bullish side. It's a pretty good hell of a spread. But nonetheless, I think it's amazing, and we should all be paying attention to this. There's no doubt. I mean, don't put your head in the sand or anything like that. And I think some people have, but I think the reality is there is something to this. And even Kamala Harris was talking about a reset to the relations in crypto. So this isn't just a political thing, one direction or the other. This is something where people are trying to figure out the best way to embrace Bitcoin and that whole world of crypto.
And those Ethereum ETFs, folks, continue to gain investment as you might expect, because they just came to the market in the last week or so. All right, let's talk about ON Semiconductor, Pete. ON is the symbol, having a nice gain against I'll say it, weak market today. I mean, we're not down like we were, a couple weeks ago where we're down, multiple percents in the NASDAQ and so forth. But the NASDAQ's down 0.25%. And meanwhile, ON Semiconductors moving to the upside. Its earnings beat caused them to move up 8%, 9%, 12% just in today's session. And, they have a lot of good news, including Volkswagen, right, Pete?
Yeah, they've got strategic investments, Volkswagen being one of them for sure, market share gains that they're making, which is fantastic. They also had a very strong Q3 outlook. This is the Q2 earnings. They didn't crush it, but they beat it. It was 96 cents versus 92. That's a big enough beat for me. The one thing that I did scratch my head on a little bit, John, is they beat on revenue, right? But it's down 17% year over year. So that would be something where I'd kind of say, well, maybe I'm not quite as bullish, but maybe that's the wrong decision because the stock's up, 10, 11, 13%, something like that. So it's having a heck of a day for all the right reasons, I think. But maybe that would be the one area where I'd go, that revenue number does bother me a little. It beat the estimates, but significantly down from a year ago.
Yeah, well, gearing up. I'm sure that's what they're telling us, Pete, that they're gearing up. Yeah. Now let's talk about McDonald's, folks. McDonald's put up some numbers that nobody who's a McDonald's shareholder is very happy about, because McDonald's basically guided lower for the first time since 2020, Pete. It's tough on these fast food chains. They're paying a lot more for all their inputs, literally everything, folks. And you know it because you buy hamburger, most of you buy, something that McDonald's sells at the grocery store. So if McDonald's is just buying a lot more than you, it's still an input expense that they have to either pass on or eat it. And apparently McDonald's, take a look at this. Here's that earnings chart again for it. Same store sales, negative for the first time since 2020. Now, that doesn't mean you should go out and just dump the stock. You see those little red dots on there and so forth. I think that the revenue numbers being good are okay, but man, if you're not growing, this is a really tough environment for you because, again, all the inputs from employment, the people that you got to have serve the stuff, to the inputs that go on the bun, including the bun, all of that is weighing on their earnings, Pete.
Yeah, and every single metric was awful, John. It's one thing to miss on your earnings, but you do well on revenue or vice versa, or somewhere in the profit side of things, you're excited about this or margins here or there. They missed on everything. I mean, they even talked about foot traffic. They talked about same-store sales. They talked about everything. The only thing that makes any sense to me on why, because people will ask, well, why is the stock up today, Pete? I mean, John, what the hell's going on? I'll tell you, when I look at it, one of the things that I would say would be this. It's on the lowest end of the range. The stock coming in was around 250. I think 245 was the low, and now it's up nearly $10 or whatever it is. It's having a pretty decent day, and you say, well, why? Well, maybe they're onto something. They're going to extend that $5 meal deal that they've got, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And I think people are just basically now, John, just trying to ride within that 52-week low and high. So that it's the only thing that makes sense, because the metrics that I see make me want to go, holy crap, we got to get out of this damn thing. But at the same time, we're seeing a pretty substantial move to the upside that feels unexplainable. The only thing that makes any sense would be, well, maybe on the chart, it's time to buy.
Yeah, and it might be, Pete. But I don't think they're out of the woods yet between all of those input costs. Yep. Just like with the people in the airline industry, you're paying more for your pilots, for your gate personnel, you're paying more for fuel. It's really hard to say, yeah, let's buy it here. Yeah. For me anyway. Yeah. Let's talk about sports, Pete, to wind it up. You've got the Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday. Tell us a little bit about what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think you're probably even more excited about it. Your Chicago Bears are going to be playing the Texans, Houston Texans. August 8th is the date, and it's the Hall of Fame game. It's out there in Canton. It's going to be really, really fun. And then the following Thursday, you've got Panthers, Patriots. You've got Lions, Giants. So we actually are getting pretty daggone close. I was lucky enough to be over at the Vikings training camp, John, for one of their first couple of practices on Saturday. I walked away just amazed at some of the athleticism that I was seeing out there. I was amazed at the speed that I was seeing out there. I was also a little surprised by the size. That was one thing that I'm looking going. It's amazing how much bigger college players are because of the different types of football that's played in college versus pro. But these guys are throwing the ball, and then they're throwing the ball. I'll tell you what, that brings me to this. How about we do a really early Super Bowl matchup? I don't know who you feel like it should be or will be, but I'm going to give you this. Baltimore Ravens. Why do I say them? Well, they've got the MVP, Lamar Jackson. They also signed a guy by the name of Derrick Henry, who only goes about 255 pounds. And I'm looking at linebackers at the Vikings that weigh maybe 220. If that were to be something, and I see more and more linebackers that are small against a running back like that, who also has a quarterback who no longer will have to feel like he needs to run. He can give it to Derrick Henry. He's got Mark Andrews as a tight end. They had 60 sacks out of that defense last year. I think the Baltimore Ravens take Kansas City this go around finally and get themselves to the Super Bowl. And I think the 49ers just return one more time, because where is there anything in the 49ers team that you say they're weak? I love the quarterback, Brock Purdy. I think McCaffrey is the fastest and best player in the entire NFL. I mean, that guy, what he can do on all different positions, along with Deebo Samuel. I mean, both of those guys can do anything, right? They can throw, they can run, they can block, they can catch, they can do it all.
Yep.
And then you got Kittle. So, when I look at that, and then I look over on the defensive side, you don't even have to say anything. The 49ers defense is one of the best in all of football. So I'm going to say early on that it's going to be Baltimore and San Francisco in the Super Bowl this year.
Yep. I'm going to make it short and easy, Pete. I agree. I agree.
I like it. All right. This one you're going to be a little bit longer on. How about quarterbacks? Right. Jordan Love is now the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Who would have thunk it, right? I mean, last year, starting out the year, would you have said, well, Jordan's going to probably get the biggest contract ever made? But he is, and every quarterback who signs gets a little bit more than the previous quarterback, then a little bit more than the previous quarterback. He did have a nice run last year, John, but are we jumping too fast to give these guys money these days? Because he's only had he had one full season starting, and that was last year. Now, He had a nice run. He had 18 touchdowns and 1 interception in the last 8 games that he played. That made him look pretty damn good to the staff, obviously, which is why they gave him the money they did. But are we getting out of hand, John, or is it just part of life? I mean, that the contracts are here. Quarterbacks are taking 20-25% of the entire salary cap. I mean, I don't know. At some point, do the wheels come off?
Well, at some point they could for one team or another. But as you said, and I could just emphasize what you said, Pete, if indeed the player, if you wait, you're just going to pay more, because whoever is the next player, I mean, I guarantee you, Pete, Purdy's contract will be bigger than Jordan Love's contract, because that's the way it goes. So I would look for the longer you wait, the more you're going to get. And Jordan Love got a lot. Purdy will get a lot more.
Well, there's a guy down in Dallas by the name of Dak Prescott who's probably looking at you right now going, wanting to give you a big hug and a kiss and lift you up in the air and tell you, you're right, John Nigerian.
Well, Dak, come on up anytime. We'll hug it out, but we won't kiss it out. Thank you for tuning in, folks. I hope you have a great day. Remember, you can grab this book if you want to learn more about option strategies. Pete and I will be out at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas Thursday and Friday this week for the Traders Expo and the Money Show. We're keynoting out there, and this is why, because that's the #1 business bestseller this year. It's Not an Option. And if you go to itsnotanoption.com, you can pick up this book. I guarantee it'll help you. I can't guarantee it'll make you money because, again, you need to be disciplined to make money. But I guarantee it'll help you understand where your risks are and how to make money. Then it's going to be up to you to make that money. All right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
I will see everybody tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.